The lights dimmed. The murmurs of the restless crowd filled the grand auditorium. Judges whispered to each other, glancing at the long list of performers still to come. They had already seen dozens of hopefuls step on stage, some good, some decent, and some forgettable. But no one had managed to move the audience yet. And then, quietly, almost hesitantly, a boy walked in. He wasn't dressed like a star. His clothes were simple, his shoes a little worn out, his hands trembling as he held the microphone. The spotlight hit his face, and for the first time, the world saw his eyes, eyes that carried both pain and an ocean of hope. A murmur spread across the hall. Some leaned forward with curiosity, while others leaned back, unimpressed. Another nervous kid, one judge whispered under his breath. The boy took a deep breath. His lips quivered, and then, he opened his mouth. The very first note escaped, soft and fragile, yet powerful enough to silence the entire room. It was as if time had stopped. Conversations froze. Phones were lowered. The sound was unlike anything anyone had heard, raw, pure, filled with a kind of truth that pierces straight into the soul. His story. That boy's name was Daniel. Born in a small town, life had never been easy for him. His father had passed away when he was just a child, leaving his mother to raise him alone. They had little money, barely enough food, and often went days wondering how they would pay the rent. But Daniel had a gift, his voice. From the time he was a little boy, he sang. Not because he wanted fame, not because he dreamed of stages, but because singing helped him forget the hunger, the cold nights, and the loneliness. His mother used to say, "When you sing, Daniel, it feels like the world becomes a kinder place." Yet Daniel never believed his voice mattered. At school, he was bullied for being quiet, for wearing old clothes, for never having lunch money. He would sit alone, humming songs under his breath, songs no one cared to hear. Until one day, Daniel's mother fell sick, very sick. The doctors said she needed surgery, but without insurance and money, there was no hope. Daniel was just 16. He worked odd jobs, cleaning, delivering, anything he could find, but it was never enough. One night, sitting beside his mother's hospital bed, Daniel whispered, "Don't leave me, Mom. Please, I'll do something. Anything. I'll make the world hear me." That was the first time Daniel made a decision that would change his life. The breakthrough. Weeks later, Daniel saw a poster for a talent competition. The winner would receive not only a prize but also sponsorships and the chance to record music professionally. It was his only chance. But Daniel had never performed in front of a crowd. Fear held him back, but his mother's words echoed in his mind. When you sing, the world becomes kinder. And so, trembling, nervous, and uncertain, he signed up. That is how he ended up on this stage, standing before thousands of strangers and a panel of skeptical judges. The moment of silence. As Daniel sang, every single heart in the audience felt something. His voice carried his struggles, his pain, his love for his mother, his fear of losing her. It wasn't just music, it was his life poured into every note. The judges, who had seen countless performers, sat frozen. One of them had tears in her eyes, whispering, this is why we do this." Children in the audience clutched their parents' hands. Strangers glanced at each other, nodding silently, as if sharing the same unspoken thought, "This boy is special." By the time Daniel reached the final verse, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And then, silence. Not applause, not cheers, just silence. Because no one wanted to break the magic. No one wanted to disturb what they had just witnessed. It was as though the entire world had held its breath. And then, suddenly, the silence erupted into thunderous applause. People rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. Judges wiped their tears as they pressed the golden buzzer. Confetti fell from the ceiling, showering Daniel in gold. For the first time in his life, Daniel believed that his voice truly mattered. The twist. But the story didn't end there. With the prize money, Daniel rushed to pay for his mother's surgery. She survived, but instead of keeping the rest of the money for himself, Daniel did something no one expected. He donated a portion of his winnings to a local charity that helped children like him, kids who grew up poor, lonely, and hopeless. "If music saved me," he said, "then maybe it can save someone else too." His act of kindness went viral. People across the world shared his performance, not only because of his voice but because of his heart. He wasn't just a singer, he was proof that even in darkness, light can shine. The emotional climax. Months later, Daniel was invited to perform at a global concert. Millions watched on live television. As he stepped on stage, he thought about all the people who had laughed at him, all the nights he had cried, all the times he almost gave up. And then he remembered his mother's words. When the music began, he closed his eyes, opened his mouth, and sang. And once again, the world went silent. The message. Daniel's story reminds us that talent isn't about fame, nor is success about money. True greatness lies in using what we have, our gifts, our kindness, our courage, to touch lives. Sometimes, all it takes is one voice to remind the world of its humanity. He opened his mouth, and the world went silent. Because for the first time, they truly listened. Globe final message for audience. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, your voice matters. Your story matters, and the world is waiting to hear it.